Hey guys, what's good? Welcome back to JDB Selects. Coming at you today with my round 25 tips and predictions, which does mean we have only 3 more weeks of the regular season. And if you take a look back at last week, we tipped 4 out of 8 games. I am still pissed at Harry Grant for that flop against the Panthers. The Doggies might actually just be pretenders. The Lockie Galvin drama may have derailed their season. This week is a massive test, obviously up against the Storm. If they can't win this week, I dare say they can't win the comp. The Dolphins had their moments against the Broncos, but ultimately lacked too much through the middle of the park. And the poor old Eels didn't match the same desire as the Bunnies, leaving us at 4 out of 8, but still at 59% for the season. And if you take a look at the tipping comp ladder, there was a massive move last week by one person in particular, and that was Jordan Hill, who has moved 5 points clear of Brady's bunch with a massive 6 out of 8 last week. Some really good tips by Jordan Hill, which should put him in pretty good stead to take out the top spot. But don't count out Manawatu Turbo. Last year's winner is now in 3rd place, also with 6 tips correct last week. So seriously, keep an eye on Turbo. I dare say he is still in with a sniff with 3 weeks to play. Congrats, Jordan Hill, though. Great week last week. Good luck to everyone shown on screen. Here are my tips and predictions for round 25. Alright, round 25 gets underway on Thursday night as per usual with the 15th placed South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the 12th placed St. George Illawarra Dragons at Accor Stadium. And if we start first with the Rabbitohs, who clinched a close 20-16 victory over the Parramatta Eels at Allianz Stadium, coming from behind after trailing 12-10 at half-time, which marked South Sydney's 3rd consecutive win over the Eels. Jai Gray started at fullback, running for a game-high 211 metres with a line break assist, a try assist, and several try-saving tackles that kept the Rabbitohs in contention during key moments. Cody Walker's return also proved pivotal. He returned off the bench from injury and set up 2 crucial second-half tries, both finished by Tallis Duncan, who was once again one of the Rabbitohs' best. Good signs for the Bunnies with still a bye to come next week before the season's over. And in terms of teams list, Trail Mitt is listed to return this week from a back injury, while Lockie Hubner is also expected to return from concussion. And as for the Dragons, they were narrowly defeated 14-10 by the Warriors over here in Auckland in a match marked by both resilience and adversity for the Saints. The Dragons jumped to an early 10-0 lead thanks to a double from centre Matthew Fige. Before midway through the first half, St. George suffered a major blow, losing 3 forwards, all to first half concussions, forcing them to activate their 18th man. Despite the reduced bench and being under immense pressure, the Dragons defended bravely for most of that game before conceding 2 late tries to blow what would have been one of the more gutsy wins of the season. And in terms of teams list for the Saints, Jack DeBellin, Hamish Stewart and Jaime Sele, as I just touched on, will be sidelined this week due to the NRL's HIA concussion policy, while Moses Suli and Michael Molo are chances of returning. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Rabbitohs, they have won 7 straight against the Dragons at Accor Stadium. South also took down the Dragons 24-25 earlier this season, and that was all the way back in round 2. As always, a tough one to start, but I am going to back the Rabbitohs here by 1 to 12 points based on the fact that Walker and Mitchell play. I think they've certainly been playing with renewed passion, I guess, which is funny because they didn't play with that earlier on in the season. They've now seemed to have been, spurred on by the reality of potentially winning the Spoon. And with those 2 key players back, I do think they can be competitive against a Dragon side that is just hampered by injury and lacks a little bit in the halves. Close game, coin flip game for sure, but I am going to take the Bunnies here by 1 to 12 points. Alright, moving now to the first of 2 games on with what is being hailed as one of the greatest Fridays of football of the year, maybe in recent years. We start first with the 5th placed Penrith Panthers having a crack at the 1st placed Canberra Raiders at Glen Willow Oval. Right, if we start first with the Panthers, who produced a highly competitive finals-esque match against the Storm at CommBank Stadium, with Melbourne prevailing 22-18 in Golden Point. The Panthers entered the game on a 9-game winning streak, having scored 30 points or more in their last 5 games, and dominated early with strong metre gains led by Dylan Edwards and Brian To'o, who combined for 519 metres from their 52 runs. The game was forced into Golden Point after a match-winning field goal by Nathan Cleary was scrubbed out by extremely contentious play from Storm captain Harry Grant, who milked an obstruction penalty perfectly. Grant then produced another magic trick to embarrass the Panthers and snap their win streak. I think the loss, though, will spur them on for yet another huge finals campaign and certainly removes the pressure of entering the finals on a long win streak. And in terms of teams list for Penrith, Isaiah Yeo's return is still being kept tight-lipped by the Panthers, so do keep an eye out on teams lists on Tuesday. And as for the Raiders, they had their final bye of the season last week, but the week prior produced a 28-12 victory over the Manly Sea Eagles at GIO Stadium, reinforcing their position atop the ladder. Emerging 5'8", Easton Strange was the standout for the Raiders, scoring his first career hat-trick with 3 outstanding tries, and in the process putting himself in the box seat for a call-up to the Ashes tour at the end of the year. The Raiders have been one of the most entertaining teams all season, which certainly sets up for a blockbuster game to kick off the action on this Friday night. Good news for the Raiders too is Matty Nicholson is listed to return from a long injury layoff this week, while Savilio Tamale is also eyeing a return from a knee injury either this week or next. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, Penrith have won 5 of the last 6 games against the Raiders. They've also won 4 of the last 5 meetings between the two clubs at GIO Stadium. The bookies currently have the Penrith Panthers at $1.62 favourites, with the points line currently hovering around 3.5. Oh man, I am going to lean the way of the Panthers here in this one, just by 1 to 12 points. I think defensively they're a bit better than the Raiders. The Raiders have certainly been able to score plenty of points, but they've also conceded a fair few. Penrith had their wobbles at the start of the season, but since then have become such a defensively sound unit, and I do think that's the difference between the two sides. They can both score points, but I do think Penrith's clinical defense and ruthless, robotic style of play get them across the line, but I am just going to take them by 1 to 12 points. I think it's an absolutely cracking game, post slim margins. Alright, and the final game on Friday is another banger, with the second place Melbourne Storm taking on the third place Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs at Amy Park. Alright, and if we start first with the Storm, who secured a narrow golden point victory over the Penrith Panthers at CommBank Stadium, 22 points to 18. The Melbourne Storm were on the wrong end of the field position and territory battle for that opening 60 minutes before Xavier Coates made a significant impact with 2 tries, including a 65-metre intercept, massively turning momentum in Melbourne's favour. Harry Grant's career best form continued, coming up with a crucial and controversial play to draw an obstruction penalty on a field goal attempt from Nathan Cleary before winning the game for his side in Golden Point with an impressive show of deception from dummy half to score right under the post untouched. Another tough-fought win for the Storm against the odds. Good news for the Storm too is Ryan Papenhuyzen is expected back from concussion this week, as is Will Warbrick, who has been sidelined with a concussion as well since round 10 this season. And as for the Bulldogs, they were thumped by the Sydney Roosters 32 points to 12 at Allianz Stadium, getting overwhelmed by the Roosters' performance in that second 40. Canterbury opened the scoring with a try from Inari Tuala, but failed to produce another on their own, with Matt Burton producing a fortuitous 85-metre intercept try late in the game. The Dogs were flying at the top of the ladder before the signing of Lockie Galvin, which has certainly turned the club's fortune upside down, and has been seemingly compounded by Cameron Serrato's decision to move Reid Marnie to the bench in place of Bailey Haywood. It does feel like to me that they've backed themselves into a bit of a corner with everything they've done and kind of need to persist with it to save face, even if that does mean negatively impacting their premiership chances this season. Now, in terms of teams list for Canterbury, good news, Sitili Tupanua and Marcelo Montoya are both chances to return this week. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Storm, they have won 8 of the last 9 meetings between the two clubs. The Storm have also won 3 of the last 4 games at Amy Park. The live odds currently have the Storm at $1.44 favourites and the Bulldogs coming back at $2.80. The points line is currently 6.5. Oh, another tough game to tip this week. I know by the odds and by the stats, it should be a Melbourne win, but I do think this is a massive game for the Dogs that have circled this in their calendar, that if they can't win this, they probably can't win the comp. But I am still going to take the Storm here by 1 to 12 points. I think with Papenhuyzen back, they're a different beast. They haven't been that convincing in recent weeks, but have still done enough to get the win. Again, I think this is a very low-scoring, tight, defense-oriented contest. But ultimately, Melbourne Storm come out on top by 1 to 12 points. Alright, moving now to the first of 3 games on your Super Saturday, and we do start with the 10th place Manly Sea Eagles taking on the 9th place Dolphins at Four Pines Park in a game that could have huge top 8 ramifications. Alright, starting first with the Manly Sea Eagles, who fell 26-12 to the West Tigers in round 24 at Allianz Stadium, with their only tries coming from Tolu Kola in the opening minute and Matt Lodge in the 79th minute in what was largely a one-sided contest. Kohler was the standout for Manly, producing a brilliant 60-metre solo try to start the match and finishing with a try, nearly 150 run metres and 7 tackle breaks, providing a much-needed spark in an otherwise lacklustre team effort. That was Manly's 4th loss in a row as they limp towards the end of the season and the DCE era. Now, in terms of teams list for Manly, Ruben Garrick could be out for the remainder of the season with a shoulder injury. Jake Trbojevic and Lachlan Croker are both fighting to overcome concussion symptoms, but given the frequency and severity of their recent head knocks, I'd say a return could be seen as reckless. And as for the Dolphins, they showed resilience in a tough battle against the Broncos, but ultimately fell short 38-28 in a high-scoring game. The Dolphins had their moments on attack, but couldn't match or contain the X-factor of the Broncos, who produced a sensational second-half comeback led by Payne Haas and Reece Walsh. The Finns missed 60 tackles, over double that of the Broncos, and came up with costly errors in that second 40 to nullify any chance of clawing back the lead. Trey Fuller, though, was outstanding in his return to first grade, running for a game-high 257 run meters and producing a spectacular solo effort try, showcasing his speed. It was clear that the Dolphins' middles weren't able to go with the Broncos, with their injury list finally taking its toll. The loss means the Dolphins will have to work even harder now if they are to secure their maiden finals berth. Now, in terms of teams list for the Finnies, Felice Kaufusi and Francis Molo are both free to return this week, having served suspensions. Herbie Farnworth, though, is still expected to make his return in a few weeks' time in round 27. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, they've only met twice to this point, with the home side winning each encounter. The live odds have it near as a pick'em, with the Sea Eagles currently $1.87 favourites and the points line 1.5. But I am going to lean the Dolphins here by 1 to 12 points. I think they have far too much points in them compared to a Manly side that has just looked absolutely flat and disjointed for months now. Let's be honest, they've had a few good wins here and there where they've finally managed to click. But as a whole, it has been a very disappointing season for the Sea Eagles. Obviously, the DCE drama plays a big part in that. And I think a lot of reports are that the players aren't happy with Seabolt. So for me, the Dolphins have far much more to play for. That maiden's finals berth up against, a basket case Sea Eagles side. Give me the Dolphins all day by 1 to 12 points. All right, moving now, what is being hailed as the game of the season. We have the 17th placed Gold Coast Titans taking on the 4th placed Warriors at Cbus Super Stadium. And if we start first with the Titans, who suffered a heavy 54-22 defeat at the hands of the Sharks at Sharks Stadium, further adding to their woes against them, having now lost 10 of their last 11 games against Cronulla. The Titans struggled with ball security, committing multiple errors and mishandling high balls, which allowed the Sharks to capitalise repeatedly and dominate possession and the scoreboard advantage. Seriously, another vintage Gold Coast Titans performance. Round 27 can't come soon enough. There is some light at the end of the tunnel, though, for the Titans, with Brian Kelly due back from concussion this week, while Khalees Haas and Jojo Fafita could also feature in this week's game. And as for the Warriors, they secured a crucial 14-10 victory over the St. George Illawarra Dragons, moving them back into the top 4. Centre Adam Pompey was a standout for the Warriors, making up for a poor defensive first 40, scoring a late double, including the decisive try in the 73rd minute, which was set up by Tane Tuapiki. Let's be honest here, guys, it was so far from convincing, and the Warriors will be thanking their lucky stars that the Dragons were severely impacted by injuries, as the Warriors' attack left plenty to be desired. Nonetheless, though, a scrappy win that could certainly prove pivotal in securing a home final and a top 4 finish. Good news too for the Warriors, with some big inclusions expected back this week, with Te Maire Martin, Alilia Tawa, Kurt Catewell, and potentially even Rocco Berry could all be available for selection this week, giving the Warriors a relatively full-strength lineup. Alright, looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Titans have the wood over the Warriors in recent times, having won 6 of the last 7. That also includes a 24-16 win earlier this season over here in Auckland. The live odds currently have the Titans at $2.35 underdogs, with the Warriors $1.60 favourites, and the points line is currently 4.5. This is it. We're going to snap the streak against the Titans, as embarrassing as that sounds. This is the week we do it. We're finally going to beat these dirty Gold Coast buggers. Give me the Wars, 13+. Alright, and the final game on Super Saturday has the 14th placed Parramatta Eels up against the 8th placed Sydney Roosters at CommBank Stadium. Alright, starting first with the Eels, who narrowly lost to the South Sydney Rabbitohs 20 points to 16 in a thrilling clash at Allianz Stadium that certainly went down to the wire. Eels winger Zach Lomax was the standout, scoring 2 tries, including a clutch sideline finish in the 72nd minute that brought the Eels within striking distance. The match was decided in the final moments when Rabbitohs fullback Jai Grayker made a try-saving tackle to deny Isaiah Iyongi a potential match-winning try, and I thought that play really summed up the entire match. It kind of felt like the Eels just expected the Bunnies to fold, but instead Souths played with their underdog mentality and were willing to put their bodies on the line a little bit more than the Eels. Certainly a disappointing loss for Parramatta, who had seemingly started to turn a corner defensively, but couldn't quite find or gel on attack. And in terms of teams list for the Eels, no new injuries and no new players due back this week, so I'd expect a fairly unchanged side. And as for the Roosters, they delivered a commanding 32-12 point victory over the Bulldogs at Allianz Stadium. Daniel Tupou scored a hat-trick and in the process overtook Steve Menzies to become the 4th on the all-time leading try-scoring list with 182 career tries. Enforcer Nafahu White also played a pivotal role, scoring 2 crucial tries and leading the way with his effort. The Roosters have now won 3 straight games with an aggregate score of 116-28, showing formidable late-season form as their attack continues to fire more consistently with Sam Walker back in the side. And in terms of teams list, Siwa Wong is the only Tricolours player potentially back this week following that heavy concussion in the game against the Dolphins. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Roosters have won 14 of the past 18 games against the Eels, and I do think they win again this week. Give me the Roosters 13+. They are on fire right now. Like I just said, with Walker back in the side, they are a completely different beast. Their attack is just flowing right now, and I think they've got far more points in them than the Eels, so it should be a fairly easy one to tip. Alright, moving now to the first of 2 games on Sunday this week, and we do start with the 16th placed Newcastle Knights taking on the 6th placed Brisbane Broncos at McDonald Jones Stadium. Alright, starting first with the Knights, who suffered a heavy defeat against the North Queensland Cowboys, going down 38-4 at Queensland Country Bank Stadium in Townsville. Newcastle dominated from the outset, piling on points throughout the match. The Knights' only points came in that second half as they struggled to break through the Cowboys' defensive line and failed to match the home side's attacking flair. The loss extends Newcastle's poor record in Townsville, having not won in the city since 2015, and highlights the challenging season for Newcastle, who remain winless in their last 5 outings. And in terms of teams list for Newcastle, Phoenix Crosland is expected to return this week following a concussion, while Adam Elliott is also eyeing a return either this week or next. And as for the Broncos, they defeated the Dolphins in a high-scoring contest, clinching a 38-28 victory after a thrilling second-half comeback at Suncorp Stadium. Reece Walsh was the standout player for the Broncos, leading the fight back with a string of decisive plays and scoring a key try to inspire his side in that second 40. Tony Staggs also continued his strong form at home against the Dolphins, notching up 2 tries in the match, and despite being severely depleted by injuries to star players Adam Reynolds, Ezra Mam, and Selwyn Cobbo, Broncos veteran Ben Hunt was pretty strong at halfback and looks more than capable to plug the gap of Reynolds until he returns in a few weeks' time. Now, in terms of teams list for Brisbane, Brendan Piakura will be eyeing a return from concussion this week, while Big Ben Takura isn't expected back until round 26 at the earliest. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Broncos, they have won 5 straight against the Knights. They've also won 3 of the last 5 meetings between the two clubs at McDonald Jones Stadium, and I am going to take the Broncos here 13+. I think they should have far many more points in them than the Knights. So yeah, pretty straightforward one there. Alright, and the final game of round 25 has the 11th placed West Tigers taking on the 13th placed North Queensland Cowboys at Leichhardt Oval. Ooh, what a goodie. And if we start first with the Tigers, who secured a decisive 26-12 victory over a downright awful Manly Sea Eagles side at Allianz Stadium with some standout attacking efforts. Adam Dewey has continued his sublime run of form with a try and played the perfect foil to Jerome Luai. Gerald Skelton, Sania Taruva and Taylor May each crossed for tries, highlighting the Tigers' improved potent backline, which will only get better given more time to gel and a proper preseason together. Certainly great signs for the Tigers, who are now enjoying their best season since 2011 with 3 more rounds to play, and certainly playing full of confidence. And as for the Cowboys, they delivered a dominant performance against the Newcastle Knights, winning 38-4 at Queensland Country Bank Stadium to wrap up round 24. It was a must-win game for the Cowboys, and they certainly didn't disappoint, running in 6 tries to 1 and never looking threatened by the Newcastle's attack or lack thereof. Scott Drinkwater was best on ground for the Cowboys, scoring a try and having a hand in a few others while running for over 200 metres. The win maintained their dominance over the Knights in Townsville and was a good reminder of the potency of the Cowboys' attack They certainly just need to work on their defense. Good news too for the Cowboys is Murray Taulagi is expected to be named this week, having overcome a hamstring injury. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Cowboys, they have won 6 of the last 7 games against the Tigers. However, the Tigers have won 9 of the last 11 meetings between the two clubs at Leichhardt Oval. Ooh, the Tigers at Leichhardt are a different beast. So I am going to take Wests here to win by 1 to 12 points. They've got all the momentum by now. They're going to have a fairly decent crowd, sold-out crowd, should I say, at Leichhardt. They do play well there against the Cowboys. I think, like I say, there's something happening at the Tigers. You can feel there's a lift, there's a shift. They're getting there. And so I do think up against the Cowboys side that just concedes points, they can do it. So I'm going to take West to go back-to-back by 1 to 12 points. Bang, just like that, we're done. Only 2 more weeks to go. Thank you as always for tuning in. Leave your tips and predictions in the comments down below. Join our free Discord server, and I will see you next Monday.